I know the reason, is that he wants to keep this case himself. Now, he's retiring in December, but they've never had a bankruptcy case that stayed in this region. They all, every time there was a bankruptcy case larger, it went somewhere else. And one of his things is that, you know, I'm going to hold on to this bankruptcy case and I'm going to see it through. And I think this is his last hurrah before he retires in December. And so he's trying to keep hold of this case and doesn't want to turn it loose. We filed motions to remove it from him because he's an Article I judge, what they call, in federal court, to an Article III judge that has long tenure. He's denied that, but that's on appeal at this point right now to try and move it, because we don't believe that you're getting a fair shake in hearing this stuff, because he says his position is, well, I think Detroit needs to go through the bankruptcy because they got to fix the stuff for the citizens. And his thing is because they got to get the lights on and they got to bring police service. And we're saying, guess what, Judge? It ain't happening. All other stuff around you that you see that's happening is going nothing to turn on any lights and nothing to help police service. Is everybody getting paid? I mean, I think you not open your eyes when you see this kind of stuff. But his premise is that he has to ensure that services are going to be provided to the citizens. I would agree with that if that was happening, but it's not. It's just somebody else getting paid. And all this stuff that shows you is just people are getting paid and paid and paid under the table. And the citizens are the ones that are suffering, and the retirees are the ones that are suffering. You heard the governor at one point, I see you had the governor on many occasions that said that, and I agree with that. The governor says, to fix the city of Detroit, there ought to be shared sacrifices. Everybody ought to feel the pain, and everybody ought to come to the table and put all the issues on the table. I agree with that. It just hasn't happened. The only ones who's feeling the pain are the workers and the retirees. Big business, they're not feeling any pain. The vendors are not feeling any pain. Consultants are getting paid, as I show you these invoices, just out of your gourd. You never would expect the money that you see on these invoices that people are getting paid. I broke the story on Orr, that they did break that story. I broke the story on Orr that I got hold of his bills at the Book Cadillac. $3,000 a month for his room, and this guy's sitting up here eating $800 to $1,200 food bills with lobster and crab cakes, while he's down here taking people's stuff. That was ridiculous. But they did break that story, so I mean that did get out in the news, and that was out there for a little bit. But now, you know, most of the stuff it hits for a thing, and then they throw it under the rug and they'll sweep it, you know, because they don't want to get the real facts in for people else. So I mean, they got a lot of people, Buffalo, to believe that all this stuff needs to happen at the same time while they're doing something totally different. Yes, ma'am.
These consulting firms and all these people getting paid, what do they do? Who's hiring them? And what, I mean, how do they justify what they do? I mean, well, it sounds complicated.
Well, it is, and that's why I said the emergency manager is hiring the firms. Let me give you an instance. I talked about Ernst & Young, for instance. But let me give you another instance. When Ernst & Young was hired, I hired Ernst & Young almost 2 years ago. Ernst & Young's contract, I had it in here too, started at $600,000. Ernst & Young is really looking at cash flow. That's what they're supposed to be doing, looking at cash flow in the city of Detroit. That's what they were hired to do. Ernst & Young's contract has got 7 change orders. Change orders is they come back and say, you know what, contract started at $600,000, but I found some more stuff and it's going to take me longer, so I need another $300,000 or $400,000.
You mean they're analyzing?
They're analyzing supposedly the finances of the city of Detroit.
They're being hired for that, okay.
But the contract for them started to pay them at $600,000. And as I always tell people when I preface this, I'm glad you're sitting down. The contract today is $10.3 million in just 2 years. Because they keep coming back saying, well, you know what? I really didn't believe that I had to do this, but now I got to do this, so I need another $1.2 million. or I needed $2 million, or I needed whatever. So the contract has grown from this real short span from $600,000 to $10.3 million. And I've been trying to get that story in the news, and people don't want to print it. They don't want to talk about it. They want to print it. So, and that's what I'm saying. So if you got that kind of money to keep giving it out,
Where's it coming from? We're broke.
you're not broke. That's what I'm telling you. You're not broke. Okay? That's the whole issue. Yes.
I must go back to that question I was trying to ask a moment ago about bank liens and revenue sources, like for example casinos pay taxes supposedly to the city of Detroit, but the money never gets there because the banks have liens on a particular transaction and they collect it rather than the city.
Yeah, that's the swap deal. That's the swap deal. They have. That's the swap deal. That's in litigation too at this point.
Good.
Have the retirees lost their health care?
No, they're trying to change the health care right now. And as you know, the thing that they sent out, and they just sent out a booklet, which I was trying to stop. They sent out a booklet to retirees saying that effective January 1, they're going to change their health care benefits. And they're January 1, yeah. And their health care benefits, depending on when you retire to your age, either you will get $125 towards it or $250. And then you go on the exchange. Okay? But that in itself is taking people in reality from because I did some numbers on it, and just an individual, a live individual, where you take it from a person that was doing $175, this person was doing $175 in deductibles, now it's going to go to $750 in deductibles. So what does that do to their pension? When you got to come up with another $500 and some dollars, that's got to go now to your medical care, and that's what's wrong with this stuff, is because they're saying we're going to shift the cost. The city said, hey, we don't want to pay this, so we're going to shift it to you. But it's not so much that they don't want to pay it, it's on the other end, when you look at the contract, it's the carrier who's really receiving the big money. And so the city is just saying, hey, we're flipping that out. Yes?
Something I've never understood when I've read the paper was that Kevyn Orr was saying they're going to put retirees on Medicare. Well, I thought that, Detroit retirees are going to be eligible for Medicare anyway, aren't they?
That's correct.
That's no decree from on high. That's just that they've been paying FICA all these years, right?
Right.
So that made it sound like he was, along with putting people who were before Medicare on the exchange, then that I can see the shaft with that, when they were getting a certain amount of guaranteed health care coverage to, when they were retired. But I didn't understand what are they trying to play a game? And then I did have a second question. There was this recent thing in the paper about where the city now, who's in bankruptcy, wants to get a $350 million loan from Barclays.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the swap.
That's the swap deal.
That's the swap deal he was asking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if you had any insights on those two things.
Well, both of them is issues that you don't have the full understanding of what he's going to do at this point. So, Orr has been doing like he throws a lot of stuff out there, or he throws things out there to get headlines. And the newspapers are printing what he wants them to print. But then when you say in actuality in these meetings, give me the actual plan and so you can see it, and we haven't got it. And so that's one of the things that even in the retiree group that I'm in, we requested some documents now through the court. Because we've asked the federal judge and said, look, Judge, we're talking to the Jones Day and talking to these people. They're talking all this crap and they put all this stuff in the newspaper, but they won't give us the stuff. That's back to this transparency stuff again. And so we filed last week, the attorneys filed last week, to request that all documents have to be sent through the court. And so we could get the information. And the judge has granted that. So hopefully next week we're going to start getting all of this stuff. and then you can see what he's really did. I mean, in another instance, for instance, even with the active people, he did this thing 3 weeks ago, and it was on the front page. I'm going to say $12 million in health care. That's what he had on there. That was a front page headline. $12 million health care for actors. Well, after you got the documents that he had, I did an analysis on the document, and then I sent them out to another person who does health care on a regular basis. They did the figures too. They matched up with mine. His program that he did didn't save any more than $2 million. But he had already put it out there in the paper that it saved $12 million. So as you walked around, people would say, oh, Orr says his program is going to save $12 million. I said, no, it didn't. So did we try and get them to retract that and put it in a statement? Sure we did. We did a press conference. We had a couple of media people show up. We sent it to all the media stations. They didn't print it. Because they just cling on to what Orr does and what he says. And so that's why so many people believe everything that is said by them instead of looking at what I carry around with me all the time and in the car, the factual documents. And it's hard to get that out because they're on the side of the emergency manager and just letting him tell the story even though it's a lie. Another one he told was, you heard about he had $1 million check was found in the drawer. Right? People heard that. That was a front page story. And the employee left $1 million check in the drawer. Well, when they reprinted the article 3 days later, they put an article this big in the obituary section. He had requested that the vendor why do a wire transfer of $1 million? Nobody does a $1 million check. He stopped the wire transfer and told them to send the doggone $1 million check. But they didn't correct it until 3 days later, but it was only an article that big. So most people didn't see it. You know, I mean, so this guy he lies, he throws a lot of stuff out there, and he gets the press because he put it out there, and it's all to show the same thing. He did the same thing with the trustees. He said 4 trustees went to Hawaii for a week for a convention. They shouldn't have went. $22,000. And he's trying to make that out there was a bad deal. 4 people to go to Hawaii for a week at $22,000 is not any money. Well, you fly airfare as well as staying there too, and you're on the business trip off. But that again was to try and change people's opinion about the trustees that sit on the board. Because what do they want to do? The trustees that control the pension board are elected by the employees. And what they're trying to do is, guess what? Get control of the pension board. And so they want to throw those people off and put the management folks on. They've been trying to get a hold of the pension board for years. I mean, the pension trustees, those jobs, they've been trying to get a hold of that for years, and they haven't given it to them. But that's the whole thing about that. They're just trying to say, hey, you need to throw those folks off. We need to take control of the pension funds. And people are saying, no, that's our money. We elect our people to sit on the pension board, and we don't want you to have control of it. The city's pension fund, if you look at it, I have another document that's on the card that's in my other book. But I have that document because I carry it around. City's pension fund is funded at the general system. It's funded at 77.7%. State of Michigan's pension system is funded at 60.3%. So who do you think should be worried about their pension?